Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this Blitz chess postmortem, a postmortem of my Blitz game number 412. My opponent with the white pieces kicked off with e4 and I decided to play the Sicilian. Follows up with knight f3 and we get main line. Open Sicilian with d4. Takes, and knight f6 to force the knight out to c3 to defend the pawn and blocking the c-pawn, so preventing the Maroczy bind. And now I decided at this point to go for the dragon. This is, of course, where you can play the Najdorf or the classical or the Scheveningen setup. All reasonable ways to play. So g6 introduces the dragon, and the most normal response here is one of these bishop moves. Bishop to e3, setting up the Yugoslav attack, it's called in this opening, or bishop to e2, setting up a more classical system with just good solid development and castling kingside. The Yugoslav attack is castling queenside and playing f3 and g4, going that way. Anyway, so bishop g5, a bit of a rare move. There's also bishop c4 as an option. And I can just protect the knight with my bishop, so I didn't particularly want to allow the pawn damage. And then he goes bishop e2. And after castling, we're actually out of the opening book. But you see, I got a reasonable position out of the opening. White still has the opening edge, so nothing horrible has gone wrong for white either. Just not the most common way to play. So I just get my pieces out. We have some normal developing moves. He decides to drop back with his knight. Sometimes it's, a little more accurate to take here or to defend it in some way. It's not immediately coming under attack, but just dropping the bishop back to e3 would secure that knight against any possible discoveries. I mean, there are potential discoveries here with my dark squared bishop hitting the knight as well as my knight on c6. But anyway, he dropped back to b3. And now I played b6, going for the fianchetto of the bishop. He goes queen d2, preparing to put his bishop on h6 and trade off the dark squared bishops, which is a good idea in this structure. I have a good dark squared bishop here, and he's going to get rid of it. But it is a bit slow, as his bishop went here and then there, so it took a couple moves. But still, nothing horrible has gone wrong. After bishop h6, I just ignore that. I can't really stop the trade, and I don't particularly want to stop it. If he trades, I have other things going on, so I'm not so worried about the loss of that bishop. So he goes rook a to c1, defending his pawn, and I go knight to e5. So at this point, I've pretty much equalized. Let me see, was there a more accurate move than rook a c1? Maybe rook a to d1. Yeah, putting the rook on c1 is a bit mysterious. I mean, this pawn may come under pressure eventually, but it's not immediately under pressure. And if you put the rook on d1, you have some pressure on the d-pawn and maybe ideas of pushing on with the e5 at some point. Anyway. So rook a to c1, and after this I'm pretty much equal. Knight to e5, just continuing normal development, f3. Bit of a mysterious move there, opens up a diagonal towards the king, and you don't usually start the pawn storm in this setup because you've castled on the king side, but I suppose it is possible. It does also, I mean, it secures this pawn for the long term, so it has its positive aspects too. It's just a bit unusual. So with a6 here, keeping his knight from hopping into these squares. And maybe preparing b5. He goes queen f4. So he is thinking of getting something going on the king side, it looks like. You go queen to c7, lining up on the c file. And, I have ideas of hopping my knight into here and maybe encouraging an exchange of this light squared bishop. Although right now this light squared bishop isn't looking so great, so maybe I just want to leave it there. And but also I have the idea of queen to c5 here with the check. Might come in handy at some point. I just have to keep on the lookout for loose pieces. Maybe I can throw my pawns forward and chase the knight away too. A lot of different ideas in this position. Okay, my opponent, now it's my turn. His turn. He goes knight d2. Starts rerouting his knight to a more active square. It makes sense. And right here I go d5. The engine is already starting to like queen c5 check. Yeah, he's let go of the c5 square voluntarily, so I have that. And also the move b5. And actually, if you see the queen c5 line here, it's followed by b5. And, well, the move b5 may make some sense in a little bit. I play d5. Not a horrible move. It's if you can get rid of this d-pawn, this is often a liability here, and open up the center a bit. That is frequently a good idea in the Sicilian. So knight takes, we get some exchanges, and I take back, and now he grabs the pawn on a6. So if I'd played b5, then he wouldn't have that option. So I think maybe that was one of the ideas behind b5, is not to leave this a6 pawn hanging, which he did grab it, although it turns out taking that pawn is not the best move here. So it says c4 hitting my bishop is maybe a good idea. Yeah, that's the other point of b5. It clamped down on the c4 move. So you had to see that a few moves ahead. But that's what computers are so good at, calculating those lines. So b5 is a preparation for what I did here. Would have been a good move about 2 moves back, where I played d5. Yeah, 2 moves back. Anyway, he went ahead and grabbed, and now I should just play rook to a8 and skewer this bishop and pawn and grab the pawn back with the rook. For some reason, I didn't like that during the game. I'm not sure why. Or perhaps I just got attracted to this tactic of knight takes f3. But as I mentioned during the game, this tactic actually does not work. So if you want a little tactical puzzle here, now my opponent didn't play the best response, and I went on to win the game. So first of all, the idea of the tactic is I take on f3 with check, and my queen is attacking his queen, which is loose here. It's not defended. So how come this tactic doesn't really work? Okay, pause the video if you want some time to think about it. I'm going to give the answer away now. After knight takes f3, he can just recapture with the rook. And that defends his queen. And it's true that his rook is hanging, but he's lost. I mean, I've sacked a whole piece for this position. His queen is defended, and really there's... my rook is still under attack too. So I'm giving up 2 pieces for a rook. Let's see, his best move here is to take with the queen, and then I room by rook. So say rook a8, which I should have done in the first place. Now his bishop can even go back to c4 and defend the a pawn, so I'm not even getting the pawn. So it's he's got 2 pieces for the rook, and he has an extra pawn. So he's doing pretty good here. I still have queen c5 check, so I guess there's still a few ideas in this position, but yeah. Anyway, that would be the best way for white to play, and white would be on the road to winning there, I think. I think this is the kind of advantage a good player can convert. So so it's funny, yeah, I play this tactic, which doesn't work at all, instead of the simple move rook to a8. After rook to a8, it's just to show that line. You know, my rook was under attack, but I can counterattack his bishop and try and grab the a pawn. The bishop has no great squares. It can't come back to c5 now. I've got that under control. So where's the best place? It could go to b5, or it could go to e2. And then I can just grab this pawn. And the material is even. You know, I have an extra pawn over here on the king side, and he has an extra pawn on the queen side. In the long run, you know, if ever all the material were exchanged, this might be an in-game advantage. But in the meantime, I've got a little more activity for my pieces, a little more space. It says I should push on with c4 or queen to e3. Queen to e3. Oh, it's white's move. He should push on with c4. I was going to say, what's that about? Or queen to e3, hitting my pawn. So, but with an advantage to black. So that's the way to play. Instead, I played this tactic, and my opponent, in some kind of reflex, just took back with the knight. Maybe he didn't notice his queen was hanging. I'm not sure what. But anyway, after this, the game is pretty much over. Cancel that. I took his queen, and let's see, he went ahead and took my rook. But I took back, and if you've paused to count the material, I have a rook against a queen. So I have a queen against a rook, and that one pawn is not sufficient compensation for that, so he resigned at this point. So interesting, if short game, and keep that in mind before you play some complicated tactic. Make sure that it really works, and also check to see if you don't have some simple move that actually is better. Okay, hope you guys enjoyed it. Leave any comments you have in the section below, and I will see you again soon. Bye.